Welcome to Six Figure Trucker, the podcast where we share advice on how to be successful in trucking and have fun while doing so. We'll share stories, news, and advice on how to earn six figures in trucking, and we'll speak to guys and gals that are already doing so. Let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. And each and every one of you, if you join us, you know that this is a space where we elevate and celebrate the drivers that make our company what it is. Of course, we could not do it without them. We have a very special guest on our first video episode, which we're very excited about, and that would be Mark Nichols. Mark is joining us now. Mark, how are you?
I'm great. I had my first day of test driving electric garbage truck, so been a great day.
Tell us about that, driving an EV unit garbage truck. We know this is sort of a pilot program that you are part of. Tell us about what's been going on with that.
You know, it looks like they're the facility down in Birmingham or Centerport in Alabama. It's the auto car facility. I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys out there have driven auto car garbage trucks and have different opinions of them. But nevertheless, this is the facility down in Centerport, Alabama, and I guess they're gearing up to make the electric garbage truck. I don't think they're in production just yet, but they've made a couple of them, and I'm basically test driving them every day to make sure that they're holding a charge and they'll get it, at least a full day's or at least a half a day's service on a charge and do it what they can promise the customers that they'll do. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of like them better than the diesel powered, the CNG powered, because the range on them is not as much. But if you've ever driven an electric car has something called regenerative braking, and the dump trucks do too. And pretty much 90% of the garbage trucks that I've driven today, you can do one pedal driving. You don't need to use the brake.
Oh, okay.
Most of your stops, if you'll just let off the gas pedal, that regenerative braking kicks in and it'll stop the vehicle, slow it down pretty slow. I mean, that has been cool as it could be, not having to switch your foot over to the brake and the gas pedal all the time.
Sure.
Regenerative braking. As soon as you release off the gas pedal, that thing kicks in and it'll stop that vehicle pretty good. So,
do you have to finalize the stopping yourself as far as when you get to a traffic light or a stop sign or whatever the case may be, car in front of you?
It's not 50-50. There's several situations where it'll just kind of cruise to a stop, almost I'll put my foot finally on the brake, but it's not really doing nothing but just holding it in place.
Gotcha. Did that take
do what?
Did that take a while to get used to?
Not really. I grew up all my life on a golf course and driving electric powered golf carts, and they work off the same concept. If you've ever been on a golf course with electric powered golf carts, a lot of times, you'll see golfers, they'll get out of the car before the golf cart ever comes to a stop, and it'll just kind of stop itself. You get to where you trust the things. After a while, you just jump out of it and let it
stop.
some legs.
Yeah. Now,
You'll see that all the time on the golf course.
Oh, yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the EV, the trial run with it. How far do you guys go? I mean, to test the range? Do you stay around the plant there, or do you go out? How far on the road, or how do you guys do that?
Basically, they have two electric garbage trucks there right now, as I've been told. I'll take one out in the morning, and as I'm putting the mileage on it, which is basically the course is about, it's like a 25-mile route. I mean, it's basically up the interstate and back down on a more state highway. It goes through some little small towns and rural area, and pretty much 4 24-mile, 25-mile round trip. That depletes the whole charge.
Gotcha.
that drains the battery. So as I'm doing one truck in the morning, the other truck is on the charger charging up, and then I'll get the second one in the afternoon. And basically two trucks is all they have.
Right.
And I don't know how long this testing phase is going to go, but I assume when they get all the data that they can collect, because they're collecting the data as I'm driving the truck, the computer on the truck is feeding them real-time data as I'm doing the loop and everything. So anything that happens to the truck or anything that's happening that I see, the truck's going to send that data back. And they analyze that data, and they can fix things, tweak things in the operation of the truck that they need before they go full production. I think that's where we're at right now. I'm just out there just putting the mileage on it, driving it, and letting them analyze that data coming from the truck and just see if there's anything they need to work out before they start, producing a bunch of them.
Have they
Sending them out to customers.
Have they indicated what they hope the range to be on these?
Well, I test drove the McNeelius garbage trucks up in Smyrna, and I did that for a little bit, and those range on that were like it was 200 miles on charge, and I think that's what this will be, is 200 miles of charge. So I think everything's comparable, yeah. But the auto car garbage truck or electric powered garbage truck is going to be completely different than that McNeelius. That McNeelius, it's a new design from the tires up. There's new chassis, there's new everything. There's no parts coming from other trucks or nothing. The McNeelius 100% brand new design. The auto car, it is just like it's like a diesel or CNG powered auto car garbage truck that we've all driven probably, except it doesn't have that in it. It's got a big old battery pack right up underneath the middle part of the chassis, and that powers it.
Gotcha.
But it's very quiet. It's got that regenerative braking, which I love, and I think it's gonna be a winner. I mean, it might be more of a winner than the McNeelius, because the McNeelius, I hear that garbage truck is like $950,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would assume this one's going to be a lot cheaper.
Gotcha. How does it ride? You talked about how quiet it was, but how does it ride compared to a conventional, be it a diesel or a CNG garbage truck?
It rides like a sports car as far as takeoff. When you give it gas, when you give it power, it's ready to go.
I got you.
I'm sitting at red lights, and I've got pickup trucks next to me, like one F-150 pickup trucks next to me. I got all kinds of different vehicles next to me, and I can beat them offline.
Wow, that's impressive with a garbage truck.
And now what happens? It'll take off just like a jet, but it won't keep that power going. It'll back it off, but it'll, like, the first 10, 15 seconds, it'll get going. Like if you're coming around let's say you're at an intersection and you come around a curve and you got traffic coming on you on the left, and you get on it a little bit to get out front, so it'll hold the traffic up that's coming at you from the back. That thing, when you say, hey, let's go, it's ready to go.
How long have you been in this test pilot program?
This one I've been in, this particular one's my first week.
Okay.
I think it's been going on for just maybe like a month or two. It's brand new because I can tell they've worked out a few kinks in the system, but I mean the last lap I made today in the last truck, I got it like 10 miles from the plant, and they're through a code and everything. So I mean, it's I hit a bump, and all of a sudden all this computer street sirens and codes started coming on and everything.
Yeah, that's new territory there. And I understand you've been working alongside one of our colleagues, Lynn Smith. She's been driving some of these as well with you.
Yeah, Lynn, I'm not really, she's not there with me today or anything. I think she kind of started it out, but I think they needed her up in Chattanooga, and there's the things up there, and that's why they sent me down, because I think think everybody's short-handed now, and they got people everywhere. They're trying to utilize in the best position.
Gotcha. You're listening to Mark Nichols here on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. Mark is one of our very seasoned drivers, and he's in part of a pilot program for EV garbage trucks made by Autocar. He's been talking about that, and we wanted to switch gears here, pun intended, to a couple of issues in the news right now. You're on the road all the time. There's a bill out there that is before the House right now. The Appropriations Committee has advanced it to debate, and it's about more parking for truck drivers on the open road. You've been on the road for a long time. What kind of a challenge is it to find a safe, secure parking spot when you're out there on the open road?
Uh, yeah, it is a challenge. I mean, I've been trucking over 20 years, and it's always been a challenge trying to find parking space, especially since we went on electronic logs. You
Right.
know, you can't do what the drivers used to do back in the olden days. Uh, you can't stop the clocks and do what you want with the clocks. What they could do way back then. But yeah, it is an ongoing problem. Trying to get the government requires you to stop, take a break, but they don't give you a place to stop.
Right.
And I can remember going back in time a little bit when they first started the electronic logs. The drivers, there a lot of drivers were like stopping at the Walmart parking lots and places like that. And I can remember all the local sheriff departments starting to run the drivers out of those parking lots. And I mean, it was hectic there when they first started went on those electronic logs. It hasn't gotten any better. I think, they need to have some parking spaces. But I'll tell you, there's one peculiar thing about that. I don't think they're really taking in control or taking in consideration about these parking spots. Drivers are like cows. We migrate around the field the same way basically every day. And where drivers stop, it's usually where they can get a shower.
Right.
Primarily, and then secondarily, where they get something to eat and have a bathroom to use. And really, the only place the driver can get a shower is logs, pilots, and flying J's. There's TAs and Petros, but those first three are the main guys because that's where everybody gets their free showers when they fuel up.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's going to be looking for those places to park because they want to get a shower. Because if you just park in a rest stop, then you got to go to a pilot or Love's to get the shower, and that's two stops you got to make rather than one.
Right.
And
Right.
I would suggest if they're going to start giving out money to build parking spaces, they give money to pilots with Love's, all the major truck stops to expand their current parking spots first. Buy the lot next to them or the lot behind them and just expand out. And, I would suggest they do that first, and give them first dibs on that money because that's where it could be utilized the best. Because if the driver is going to be stopping there for a shower, might as well expand that park and, go from 200 spots to 400 spots.
Right.
And
this is, I'm going to go to my notes here for a second on it. It's a $200 million spending for truck parking, and the American Trucking Association is certainly behind it. They have said publicly that it would certainly help to extend parking capacity. And as they have noted, and as you have noted, it is a big problem. And according to Top Mark funding, trucks outnumber normal parking spots at a rate of 10-1. Is that something you see on the road or in the parking spots?
yes, and another thing that makes parking scarce for semi trucks and big trucks and trailers and 40, the 50-foot trailers and everything, is you'll have these dually trucks coming in there with their trailers, or you'll have RVs coming in and they're back in the truck parking, taking up spaces. or you'll have a box truck back there with a day cab, or just a regular, a day cab. Don't have a sleeper, and you'll have people. We all know this, sleeping in these trucks, which you're not supposed to, because the DOT says that's not an adequate sleeper berth, and it's not far enough away from the steering wheel to be classified as that. So there's a lot of people in the truck parking spaces behind the truck stop that really don't need to be back there.
Right.
And they're taking up space from a legit truck driver with a 54-foot trailer who needs that spot. So they need to, that's going to have to be addressed too, because if you have more trucks parking spaces, especially just a lot of spaces on the side of the interstate, you're going to have RVs in there. You're going to have box trucks in there sleeping. You're going to have these little Sprinter vans with a soft shell box on the back. They got the little sleeper above the.
Right.
You see those. A lot of the your Ukrainian drivers. I've spoken to a lot of Ukrainian drivers who love to drive those trucks. But you've got a lot of that stuff. It's these spots, and they'll be in there taking up spots, and there's got to be a way they're going to have to police that. If you are going to go utilize a truck parking space, you should have a qualified sleeper on your truck. You get first dibs, because if you're in a day cab or a box truck or something like that, where you don't really have a DOT compliant sleeper berth that you can use, they got to have something else for you, because these guys are the ones that, you pull in their truck stop at 11 o'clock at night, and you're trying to find parking spaces, and you'll find like 20 box trucks taking up spaces, and you can have all the trucks and trailers and everything, the legit trucks that should be utilizing those spots.
Right. They're
on the side, or they're blocking the entrance coming into the fuel islands or something like that. I mean, it's just a mess. If you had some way of regulating that and make these truck stops, go back there or have a police officer go back there and say, hey, you're not allowed back there because you don't have a sleeper berth on your truck. That'll open up a lot of slots for truck drivers.
Sure. And that's one of the main intents of this bill, is to eliminate or at least reduce. I mean, we've all seen it, trucks on the side of the exit ramps, on the side of the freeway. They don't have anywhere to park. They got to do the reset, and they've got to, rest themselves. And that's one of the primary purposes of this bill. And I believe right now it's been advanced to debate on the House of Representatives floor. And that's where it stands right now. And it's part of a $927 million funding to go to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And of course, the parking part of it, would certainly be a win for the drivers out there. And they're hoping that this will be completed into fiscal year next year. How important is the parking aspect of it? Obviously, you've really highlighted a lot of the need for it, but across the board for drivers out there, particularly, OTRs and those that may have the 53 feet dry vans behind them.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with us first. Transport drivers. We don't really drive a lot of vehicles with a sleeper bunk in the back.
Right.
We drive school buses, garbage trucks, dump trucks, box trucks. Every now and then we'll get a nice Volvo with a nice bunk in the back.
Right.
But probably the thing won't idle, so you really can't use that, because you'll burn up in there. Because if it don't idle, you're not going to be able to use that air conditioner. So that's a toss-up. And there are a lot of drivers on the road that may not be transporters, but they are doing what we're doing. They're in box trucks, or something other than a semi with a 54-foot trailer with a sleeper bunk in the back. They've got to come up with an option that these guys can get a good night's sleep without having to sleep in a seat, sleep in a hot truck. I've seen them sleep underneath the truck. I've seen them sleep in the back of a box. I've seen all kind of sleeping configurations
Mm-hmm.
that, if truth is known, are not DOT certified. They're not. They would not. If a DOT officer saw him, I mean, probably wouldn't. But if he did, he could probably give him a ticket.
Sure.
Because
I mean,
if you're sleeping upright like I am right now in a state with your head laid over on the window, you're not getting good sleep.
yeah,
You,
not at
you
all.
know, and it's still to catch up to you very quickly. You're going to be tired, and then you're going to burn out, and then you're not going to want to do it. I've been doing Driveway for a long time, and I made the decision long ago that, like I am right now, I'm going to be in a hotel room.
Right.
Now, there's different ways of getting cheap hotel rooms, but if they really want to help solve the hidden problem with trucks and parking spaces, they got to solve that. Because if you go to a truck stop at night, you'll have those Sprinter trucks, you'll have the box trucks parked out front, you'll have them parked out back, and you'll have drivers sleeping like this, drivers sleeping like that, and none of them are getting any sleep at all. They're just barely getting, maybe a military nap at best.
I mean, that goes to the heart of the safety problem right there.
Yeah, and then you got these drivers getting up the next day and they're sleepy because they have, been sleeping up right in the seat. And, they got to address that. And, you can't make the hotels give the drivers, special rates or something like that. But, I think probably the best thing I've seen in a while is like over in Japan. You'll have truck parks or truck stops over there where they'll have sleeping rooms in the truck stops for the drivers, where you can have you can get a sleeping room. And I've seen airports have this too, where if you wanted to get some sleep, you have like a sleeping pod
Mm-hmm.
inside the airport, and you can rent that pod out for $10, and you get a shower and go with that pod. It's soundproof, and you get some good sleep. And now, branching out from that with trucks, um, you know, about 10 years ago, I'm not real sure how long ago it was, but all the truck stops started uh, renting out their truck spaces. And they called that priority parking
Right.
or reserved parking. And now you can pull up your Love app and your Pilot app, and you can reserve a spot, even if you're not at the truck stop. If you're 50 miles away, you can reserve a spot. But what happens is, it's like, just like you remember when they had that old idle air at the
Yep.
truck stops. None of the drivers are using it because they had to pay out of their pocket to use it. The trucking companies weren't reimbursing them. So that was a failed business right off the bat. Because truckers are not going to pay for that stuff.
Right.
Same thing with the reserve parking. Drivers are not paying for that reserve parking. And you'll pull into a truck stop at night, and let's say it'll have 100 spots. And of those 100 spots, 50 will be reserved parking. And you'll have at least 60, 70% of that reserved parking space unpurchased, unused, empty, with a big cone in front of it that you can't back into it. And there you go. You've basically taken out 40% of your parking spaces at a truck stop because
Right.
no one wants to buy the reserved parking.
Sure.
So that happens everywhere across the United States. And that's contributing to the availability of parking spaces have gone down, because the trucking companies have basically taken 50% of their parking spaces and put a cone out there, painted a reserved parking, and in the hopes that drivers would just pay up for these spaces. And guess what? The drivers didn't. And every night there's all that unused parking spaces because the drivers are not purchasing it. The trucking companies, or the trucking truck stops are not making any money, and it's
Right.
just sitting empty, contributing to the problem that they're trying to fix with this motor carrier act.
Well, we'll see what happens with Bill 2367 and see if they address that. What you're talking about, the unused space. I mean, it's there, but not being used because of the fees associated with it. but hopefully it'll open up some more spaces because, I mean, really, I mean, it is a safety issue when you talk about getting the rest that is needed and the reset that you have to do
Yeah.
anyway.
What they need to do is to have that, and hopefully some congressman will have this information I just told you, and put something in here that says that, you know, that these truck stops are going to have to open up that unused reserve spots. You know, they can only, let's say they can only have 10% of their slots for reserve rather than 50. I mean, I've been in truck stops where 75% of the spots were reserved.
Hmm.
I mean, you had to go way in the back to get a free spot.
All right. Well, you know, we were talking about before we got on the show here, something that could eliminate totally different from this. You had brought it up, and I did a little more research on it. Amtrak, along with um, there's a private company out there that is hoping to partner up with Amtrak, and that is Ameristar Rail. And you had your eyes open to this, and it would certainly change the landscape of trucking. And tell us when you first became aware of this, as far as drive up trucking onto an Amtrak train.
Well, first of all, I have ridden probably every Amtrak route there is at least once. And usually I've ridden them about 5 or 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started out in transportation or transporting, we didn't have Uber back in those days. You could call up Norton, get your rental car. You had to rely on public transportation and Amtrak and whatever was available, you know, even Greyhound. So, you know, you had to be a little more clever about getting around. So I started riding trains. I started picking loads that, well, I could get on a train. That's the way I picked my loads when I first started out. First thing I would look, is there an Amtrak nearby? Can I get to it pretty
Right.
easy? If so, I would pick that load. So, one of the major cross country routes that there is with Amtrak is called the Southwest Chief. It's an old rail passenger line that's been around prior to World War II. Very famous route. I think there's even a song out there, the Southwest Chief. The train back in those days had a big old red nose on the front of it, you know, to symbolize I guess, a Southwest Chief or whatever. But anyway, it's a famous train. You can look it up on YouTube. They got stuff on there. You can look up, see what it was like riding back in the 1940s. That rail line went from Los Angeles to Chicago and back. It's back and forth each day. It followed the old Route 66 highway. You'll remember that, prior to the interstate system being rigged. And Ameristar is proposing not only a rail line, but a high-speed rail line, which would take you from New York to Los Angeles in 72 hours. It'll go through, start out over in New Jersey, and it goes to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Chicago, and then it heads down to Kansas City, St. Louis, Kansas City, and then it follows in, you know, goes down into like Albuquerque and Kingman and on into LA, like the Southwest Chief does. But along with that proposal, they want to make this train where it can stop at what they call railport locations. And if a truck driver is wanting to take his big rig with his load cross country, even maybe halfway cross country, you could put your big rig up on the train, just like you would do like in Fredericksburg, Virginia. You could put your car on that train and it'll take you down to Miami. Same concept here, except you're putting your big rig up there, and you'll just ride the train to LA and along with your, you know, your load of Clorox.
Now, how much fun would that be to be able to put your transport load on that train, and Mark's going to go and have a nice dinner inside inside the car there.
Well, I think that's if that happens, and I'm sure it would, if it's if it's available, drivers are going to do it, depending on how much it's going to cost.
Right.
But you're looking at, let's say if you're taking a garbage truck from Pennsylvania to LA, and you got a fuel surcharge, I don't know, close to $1,000 probably would be your fuel surcharge. And that rail line train is $600. That's a pretty easy decision to make.
That's
Now,
right.
Mr. Norton is going to have to, figure out, does he want his garbage trucks up on an Amtrak going across the country? That's going to have to be addressed.
Sure. And he's the kind of guy that has to make those kind of decisions. And from doing a little research on it, this could be, according to Ameristar, it could be as soon as late spring of next year, which seems, seems early, or it seems, but I guess if the infrastructure is there and if they've got the setup, I mean, the price will be one of the key factors. And I guess the effective use of it, how many people will take advantage of it. But of course, Ameristar is big on that. Of course, they want to propose this with a partnership, if you will, with Amtrak. And I think you mentioned this, and we confirmed it. The line would be called the Transcontinental, Chief, from New York to LA. And
I like that.
One of the first ones on there.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you can take the train from New York to LA going through Chicago, but you're going to have to switch trains.
Right.
At least once. In some cases, it's going to be twice. And so it's going to take a while to do that. But 72 hours, if they can hit that mark on them, and that's definitely high speed. Because right now, you couldn't do it in 72 hours.
No.
So, I mean, if they can do that in 72 hours, I'm kind of I'm wondering how they're going to do that if they have to load up a bunch of semis on top of a train, because that's not going to be a quick process right there.
No, I mean, you would almost think it'd have to be continuous, or unloading and loading would seem
You would have to have that stuff already done, where the train coming through just hooks and goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears from news of the day, topics of the day, to Mark Nichols, the person here. Mark's been on our program before, and if you didn't recall or didn't see the episode or hear the episode with Mark, Mark is a ballroom dancer. How long have you been doing the ballroom dancing, Mark?
I started ballroom dancing in the early 90s, right after Gulf War One. So 95 till today. I have to do the math real quick on that. But
Years?
Yeah, been years. Started out as a student, and then I finally got a job over at the Fred Astaire Dance Studio in Memphis, Tennessee, and I worked there for 7 or 8 years, and then I worked at another studio that I was taking lessons at in Nashville. I worked at that one about the same length of time, and then I had my own studio. So, I mean, since 1995 till today, I've been involved in it. I mean, I know a lot of people that I've taught beside and had lessons from. So, what I want to do right now is the lady that's my teacher, who used to be my boss. I used to work for her. She used to sign my paychecks. Her students want to go to Blackpool, England next year to compete in Blackpool, which is I think it's the world's oldest ballroom dance competition. It's kind of considered the world championship, or the Super Bowl of ballroom dancing. If you're a pro or an amateur like me, that's going to be on your bucket list. You're going to want to do that before you die, and so her students have bothered her wanting to go compete pro-am. And she told me, and I said, well, I want to go too. So she's thinking about getting that trip up next summer. But, I've got a lot of truck driving chicken fingers that I've been eating over at the Love's truck stop and the Pilot truck stop and the Fly J truck stop. And I've gained a lot of weight, and I got to get that weight off of me before I could pay about $2,000 for a custom made tux tail suit
Got
to wear
time.
out.
Got time.
Yeah, I got some time, but I got to get going. That's
I got you. What is it about ballroom dancing that first drew you into it and has kept its appeal to you?
watching Fred Astaire movies. Um, I don't know. When I got back from Gulf War One, and I was a newspaper journalist over in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. We talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Um, I just, there was a video store close by, and I was there one night, and I picked out a Fred Astaire, uh, Ginger Rogers movie. I took it home and I watched it. I always kind of like dancing anyway, especially dancing like that, where it's obviously I took some skill and everything to do what they did. So I took the video home and started watching it, and I played it like 7 or 8 times that night, especially the dance sequences I like. And then I watched a lot of those videos until I watched them all. And then I just said, I'm going to take ballroom dancing. And I thought I was calling the Fred Astaire Ballroom School in Nashville, but actually they had changed names to the American Ballroom Center in Nashville. And I said, I want to take some lessons, and they signed me up. And, Shalene Archer, which is my teacher now, her and her partner, Ben Ermis, was the owners of the studio. And I went up there, started taking lessons, and eventually, wasn't long after that, I got to know Ben Ermis, and he was really a dancer, really smooth guy, cool guy, and I wanted to be just like him. So I said, how do I get into teaching this? And he said, well, I don't have any openings myself, but let me call a friend of mine, Tom Corbett in Memphis, Tennessee, and see if he's got any openings for a brand new teacher. And of course he did. And I went and interviewed him in Memphis and got the job. Went into a training course. So with another female teacher there, we were brand new teachers. And we were basically watching old Fred Astaire ballroom dance instructor videos that have been there for like 20 years, from like the 1970s. And we were in that back room learning how we had manuals back then, how to teach the steps and how to do the man's part, the woman's part. So me and Stephanie in the back, we were just working on trying to get to where we could pass the certification test, which is
Right.
Fred Astaire schools, they have you have to pass your test to get certified to teach. So we're back there for 3 or 4 weeks working on it. And then we passed the first part of the teacher's test to be able to walk out on the floor and teach. And then Mr. Corliss came in, like it was on a Wednesday night. He had an old jacket with just like a suit and tie jacket, and it had torn sleeves, and it was actually his old jacket from like 20 years prior. He said, Nichols, you're teaching in an hour. Here's a coat. Put a tie on. Get ready.
You were cast into the fire right away there.
He basically kicked my butt out on the floor, and I taught Marcia Mitchell her first lesson.
Wow, that's cool. Now, the last time I saw you in person, you were in the office, which I believe was last week. I think it was last week. And you had your luggage with you, and I said, where do you call home? And you pointed down to the luggage. It's like, so you pretty much live out of the suitcase.
Yes, I do. If you look at my logbook, I'm never. I'm on the road all the time. I mean, I'm the definition of a vagabond.
But something caught my ear that you were talking about. You've been looking at the possibility of tiny homes. Have you found that may fit the needs of Mark Nichols?
Well, there's a guy up in Knoxville who's on YouTube, and he builds a lot of those, and he has tiny home communities up there where people who buy a tiny home. The thing about buying tiny homes is it's not so much the cost of the home or whatever have you, or getting it built. It's finding a place you can legally park it. A lot of communities and towns and cities won't allow tiny homes they don't consider them classified as legal residences.
Right.
and they won't give you a permit to, like you would in a trailer park, where there's mobile homes and those, and so people who buy tiny homes are fighting that process all the time. So this guy up in Knoxville, he said, the heck with it. He'll just buy his own land and have his own communities himself. So, you don't have to worry about somebody else doing it for him. So I've looked at that. And I've also looked at, I'm looking at a apartment complex now in Mexico Beach, Florida. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at several things, but the problem is if you do this job in any time at all, you're never home.
Right.
And I'm not married and I don't have children, so I'm really not at home. So, if you have a home, you're probably not going to see it a whole lot.
Right. Now, as far as
I rent out a place. I mean, I rent out a room in Nashville, Tennessee, from my dance instructor, because she's got a place behind her house and everything, like a pool house. Basically, is what it is. It's a really nice pool house. So I rent that out, and that's where I actually live. But I
do you
mean,
have access to the pool?
yeah, I mean, if I'm ever there, I do, but I'm never there. But I'm on the road
All
It's
the
like,
time.
yeah.
Now, if you
I,
do in this next chapter, if it's going to be a tiny home or the place you mentioned in Florida, how much of a consideration do you put into it as far as where your next load may be or your first load to start off a week? I mean, how much does that bear into where you live?
it does. It's always nice if you're living in Tulsa, you can just grab a $20 Uber ride over to the airport and get a school bus. So yeah, that would be a great place.
Yep.
But you're also living in Tulsa too. You got to take into consider there. And it's a good place, but it ain't the greatest place. But another thing you got to be in consideration of is, do you have an airport? Is there There's a couple different rental car agencies nearby that you can get in and out of there. That's going to be your deal. I mean, it's nice to have one there locally that you can pick up a load from, but if you can't, at least you got to be able to get in and out.
That's
It's
true.
like that, like Mexico Beach, Florida. I used to live down there before the hurricane wiped the whole community out. But that apartment complex I'm looking at is very nice. I love the apartment, but to get out of Mexico Beach, I would have to go all the way over to Panama City Airport to fly out, which that's a little bit of a drive.
Right.
Or I would have to go there to get a rental car. So you got to consider that.
Yeah. Some things you got to look at before you make that next step. You mentioned being in the Persian Gulf War. Um, with what's going on now overseas, what's your take on some of the things that may be going on as far as the Gaza Strip, some of the things that of the news late, the submarines going over outside Russia there. What's your take on that, being a veteran?
Um, well, when I was in Gulf War One and the war was over and they were evacuating us out of the war zone, they flew us down to a city that we actually came in on. When we came into the country, we flew into the city, which was Dahran.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got through with the war, we didn't fly, but we were bused back down to Dahran. And there was some apartments down there that were called, what were they called? Kobar Towers.
Right.
And the apartments were built for the Muslim people there in that area. But as we were told, they said that it's kind of against the Muslim custom to live on top of one another, like in an apartment setting.
Right.
That's what we were told. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but that's what we're told. So the apartments were empty. I mean, this is some really nice apartments, especially for that area. And they were empty. So we stayed in those apartments for a couple of weeks until our planes come in to take us out of country. So about several months later, the Kobar Towers was hit by terrorists and blown up. So it killed a lot of soldiers there. And so, that's we really didn't. I think the most dangerous part of the war for us was in those apartments. Because when we were in country, we were surrounded by the U.S. military, so we were pretty safe out in the middle of the desert.
Mhm.
Even though we were a service and supply unit, and we were pretty close to the war. We had Scud missiles going over us all the time at King Khalid Military City. Probably the most dangerous we were part of it was us at those apartments, just setting ducks for terrorists,
Right.
So, um, if you just go back through history, just the war, with it, with Israel and all of the Muslim countries over there. There's been war ever since, shortly after World War II.
Mhm.
It's a religious war. It's one religion against another, and they don't want to. I think Israel would be happy just living where they're living and be left alone. But the other countries are afraid that if if you don't leave them alone and you don't run them out, they're going to spread to your country, and then it gets to a fight between two religions.
Right.
And I don't think they're ever going to settle it. It's just like anything else. But throughout time, the only thing that really settled anything was war and blood.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's sad, but just go throughout history. Rarely was there a time where peace settled anything. What settled it was one side, sometimes both sides got tired of fighting and got tired of dying.
Right.
And,
Make
and that settled it. I know nobody wants to think that way, but that's reality.
right.
You get two kids on the playground, and you want them to stop fighting one another. Sometimes you just got to let them fight and get tired of getting hit, and then they'll stop fighting.
Well, changing topics just a little bit. You're in Birmingham now. How long are you going to be in Birmingham, and when's your next load, long load?
I was told I'm going to be here to the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that
Are
might
you,
change.
so are you getting your way around Jefferson County there, knowing your way around it pretty good?
Oh, I grew up in this whole area, southern Tennessee, northern Alabama, Darby. Oh yeah, I grew up in this whole area.
No, it was.
If I ever got a flat tire on the road, I probably have a relative within 20 or 30 minutes from me to come help me out.
Well, that's a good place to be since you're going to be there for the rest of the year. And
Yeah.
certainly appreciate you joining us on our first episode, video wise, of the Six Figure Trucker. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to sit down and talk with us about things on and off the road. Pretty rich stuff we had here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Mark. Have a good evening and get that rest.
Take care.
Six Figure Trucker is brought to you by Norton Transport. Norton Transport is a drive-away trucking company that customers can rely on. It offers excellent independent contract driving opportunities to professional, courteous, and qualified drivers that can provide the kind of service we deliver. If you're interested in learning more about Norton or just want to subscribe to the show, check out 6-figuretrucker.com. That's 6-figuretrucker.com.